My name is Amelia Grant, and the exact second I realised my own sister had been calling me a slut behind my back happened under silver streamers at my parents' New Year's party, when Brooke climbed onto a chair, raised her glass, and said, "Sweet as poison. Let's toast, Amelia," the family's favourite little actress. People laughed. Then she tapped her phone, and my stomach turned to ice, because I recognised the folder name on her screen. Amelia Receipts. And standing there in my childhood living room, champagne flutes clinking, countdown clock glowing, my mother smiling like nothing could touch her, perfect family, I understood something terrifyingly simple. Brooke didn't hate me quietly anymore. She'd brought an audience. And if I didn't end her performance tonight, she would spend the rest of my life writing my name on every ugly story she told about herself. 2 months earlier, I would have sworn I could handle my little sister the way I always had, softly, carefully, like she was a storm you could outwait if you didn't make eye contact. I'm 35. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I work as a marketing director for a regional healthcare network, one of those adult jobs where you manage budgets and deadlines and executives who talk in bullet points. Brooke is 32. She still calls herself between things, which is a polite way of saying she's been starting over every year since college, and somehow the starting over always comes with a new haircut and a new person to blame. We grew up in a normal American house, white siding, a golden retriever at one point. My dad grilling in cargo shorts like it was his constitutional right. My parents weren't monsters. They weren't saints. They were the kind of people who loved routine and tradition and peace, and if peace meant pretending something was fine, they were excellent at pretending. Brooke and I were the classic pair on paper. Me, honor roll, part-time job, scholarships, steady boyfriend, mature for my age. Her funny, loud, social, could make any room orbit around her. And for a long time, I thought that meant we balanced each other. I didn't realise until I was older that Brooke didn't see me as a sister. She saw me as a scoreboard. If I did well, it wasn't good for Amelia. It was bad for Brooke. And Brooke didn't just want to win. She wanted me to lose. I just didn't know how far she'd go until the year I finally had something she couldn't laugh off. A promotion. A ring. A life that looked solid. And Brooke has always hated solid things, because solid things prove the chaos wasn't inevitable. The first crack that season came on Thanksgiving. We were at my parents' house, the one we grew up in. Same floral couch. Same framed family photos where Brooke is always leaning toward the camera, like she can't stand being slightly out of focus. I walked in with my boyfriend, Ethan, carrying a pie from a bakery that costs too much, but tastes like you're winning at adulthood. Mum hugged me. Dad slapped Ethan's shoulder. Brooke was already there, perched on the kitchen counter, sipping wine like she was auditioning to be the fun aunt in a holiday movie. "Amelia," she said, eyes scanning me. "Wow, you look very corporate." It sounded like a compliment. It wasn't. Ethan squeezed my hand. "Hey, Brooke." She looked him up and down like she was shopping. "Hey, Ethan. Still hanging in there?" I laughed, because that's what you do when your sister throws knives with a smile. Dinner went fine, until my mum said, "Amelia's been doing so well at work. They're talking about a bigger role for her next year." My dad nodded proudly. "Our Amelia, always climbing." Brooke's fork paused in midair. Then she smiled and said, "Yeah, Amelia always knows how to get what she wants." My mum didn't notice the tone. She never does. She hears words and misses intent, because intent makes her uncomfortable. But I noticed. And Ethan noticed too, because under the table, his hand tightened on my knee like he'd heard the blade slide out. Later, while I was loading dishes, Brooke came up behind me and said softly, "So, how many late nights does Ethan let you have with your network friends?" I blinked. "What?" She shrugged. Innocent. "Marketing is flirty. You're around doctors and executives and donors. I'm just saying, you've always been good at charm." My hands went still in the soapy water. "Are you implying something?" I asked. Brooke laughed like I was dramatic. "Oh my God. No. Relax. I'm your sister. I'm allowed to tease you." Then she leaned closer and added, almost whispering, Just don't forget where you came from, okay? People get weird when they think they're better. And that's when I realized the holiday season had started. Not with lights. With a warning. In early December, my boss called me into his office and shut the door. He was a decent man, kind eyes, tired posture, the kind of manager who actually reads your work instead of just reacting to the loudest person in the room. "Amelia," he said carefully, "I need to ask you something, and I hate that I even have to ask it." My stomach dropped. "Okay." He slid his phone across the desk. On the screen was an email anonymous sent to HR. It claimed I was having inappropriate relationships with vendors and that I used sex to gain influence. There were attachments, screenshots, edited but convincing at first glance. My heart started pounding. "That's not," I began. "I don't believe it," he said quickly. "I don't. But HR has to look at it, and I wanted you to hear it from me, not a rumour chain." I stared at the screenshots until my vision blurred. One looked like a text thread from me. My name, my photo, messages I never wrote. "I can prove this isn't mine," I said, voice thin. "I know you can," he said. "But here's the part that's tricky. Whoever sent this did enough research to make it look plausible. They knew names, dates, work events." My mouth went dry, because there was only one person in my life who loved knowing details about me. Brooke. But I didn't say her name out loud. Not yet. Because even thinking it felt dramatic. Like I'd become one of those women in true crime podcasts who says, "I didn't realize the threat was coming from inside the house." I went home that night and told Ethan. He listened, jaw tight, then said, "Who would do this?" And I said the truth I'd been afraid to say. "My sister hates me." Ethan didn't look shocked. He just looked sad. "Amelia," he said gently, "I think she's hated you for a long time." Brooke didn't stop with the HR complaint. She escalated in little ways that were deniable. A mutual friend texted me, "Hey, are you okay? I heard you and Ethan are having issues." My aunt commented something weird under one of my Instagram posts. "Stay humble, sweetheart. God sees all." A colleague asked me, awkwardly, if I was still going to the donor gala because there were rumours. Rumours. I started getting that feeling you get when you walk into a room and something shifts. Not loud, not obvious, just a tiny pause that says, "We've heard something about you." Meanwhile, Brooke texted me memes, sent me "love you sis" messages, tagged me in a video about sisters being besties. And every time I stared at my phone thinking, is she really doing this? Then I'd hear my mum's voice in my head. Brooke just has big feelings. My dad's voice. She's sensitive. The family code for, don't confront it. But the thing about women like Brooke is they thrive on family codes. Because codes are cover. The breaking point came the week before Christmas. Ethan proposed. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't performative. It was us, in our kitchen, after a long day, when I was wearing fuzzy socks and my hair was in a messy bun that could have been sponsored by exhaustion. He cooked pasta. We laughed. We talked about his niece's school play. Then he got quiet. "Amelia," he said, and I knew. I knew because his voice sounded like someone holding a secret too tightly. He got down on one knee and opened a ring box. I cried. He cried. I said yes so fast I sounded like a kid being offered candy. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Safe. Because the world can be messy, but when someone loves you with steadiness, it feels like a roof over your head. We called my parents that night. My mum screamed. My dad whooped. My aunt demanded photos. Then we called Brooke. She answered on the third ring. "Hey," she sang. "Brooke," I said, breathless. Ethan proposed. Silence. Then, "Oh my God. Wow. Are you okay?" Ethan asked, trying to be kind. "Yeah," she said, voice thin. "I'm just surprised. I didn't think you were, like, the marrying type." I blinked. "What does that mean?" She laughed. "Nothing. Congratulations. I'm happy for you." But her tone said the opposite. "I'm noting this as a threat." After we hung up, Ethan said quietly, She didn't say she loved you. I swallowed. She did. In her way. Ethan looked at me. Amelia, her way hurts you. I didn't want to hear it, because if I heard it, I'd have to act. And acting meant conflict. And conflict meant breaking the family's precious peace. But the truth doesn't care about your family's aesthetic. Christmas came and went with forced smiles. Brooke showed up in a glittery dress, clung to Ethan's arm for photos, like she was part of the engagement, and told everyone, I always needed attention. Then, while I was in the bathroom, she posted a story. When your sister thinks she's perfect. No caption, no context, just enough to invite interpretation. I saw it later and felt heat crawl up my neck. I texted her, what was that about? She replied, Omig, relax. It's a joke. Don't be so sensitive. Sensitive. The word families use when they don't want to deal with your pain. Ethan said, I want to confront her. I said, no, because if Ethan confronted her, Brooke would pivot instantly into victimhood. And my parents would say, don't attack her. So I did what I always do when I'm scared of being painted as the villain. I went quiet. But I stopped being passive. Because there's a difference between quiet and blind. That night, while Ethan slept, I opened my laptop and started doing what Brooke didn't expect. I started tracking. I saved screenshots of every weird message from acquaintances. I wrote down dates, times, names. I compared the HR email timestamp to the hours Brooke had been awake and posting online. I checked metadata on one of the images HR shared enough to see it had been edited. And then I did something that felt almost ridiculous, until it didn't. I searched Brooke's name on every social platform, the way a hiring manager would. I found a burner account on TikTok that followed only 3 people. Me, Ethan, and my boss. The username was random, but the bio line was familiar. Truth is truth. That's Brooke's phrase. She said it since high school whenever she wanted to justify being cruel. My hands went cold. I clicked the burner's following list. There were comments on old videos of mine. Mean ones. About my fake smile. My pick-me energy. My corporate slut vibe. Corporate. Slut. Vibe. My throat tightened. It was her. She'd been poisoning the internet the way she'd been poisoning the family. Quietly. Persistently. With a smile. And the scariest part? She was enjoying it. When Ethan and I went back to my parents' house after Christmas to help plan the New Year party, Brooke was already there, helping my mum. My mum always hosts New Year, like it's her personal Super Bowl, sparkly hats, balloons, a table of appetizers, arranged with the seriousness of a wedding. She sees New Year as a reset button, a night where you can pretend the last year didn't happen, which is exactly why Brooke chose it. Because Brooke doesn't fight in private. She fights where she can control the narrative. That afternoon, I found Brooke in the den, sitting cross-legged, with wrapping paper scraps around her like confetti. She looked up and smiled. Hey sis. I said, we need to talk. She blinked. About what? You've been spreading rumors about me, I said evenly. Brooke's smile widened, almost delighted. Oh my God, Amelia, you're paranoid. I saw the burner account, I said. Something flickered in her eyes. Not guilt. Calculation. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, voice smooth. I stepped closer. Brooke, this has to stop. She leaned back, like I was boring her. Stop what? You being dramatic. Because I can't control your emotions, Amelia. There it was. Gaslighting dressed as therapy language. I swallowed hard. Why are you doing this? Brooke sighed like she was burdened by my ignorance. Because you always act like you're better, she said quietly. You always have. You walk in, and everyone looks at you like you're the standard. That's not my fault, I said. Brooke's eyes sharpened. No, but it's your advantage. And you never share. Share? I repeated, stunned. Share what? She stood up slowly. Mom and Dad, attention, praise, Ethan, your job, your money, your stupid calm confidence. You take up so much space, Amelia, and you act like it's natural. I stared at her. Brooke, you're my sister. She shrugged. And you're my competition. The words hit me like a slap. Not because she said them. Because she meant them. Then she smiled again. Don't worry. I'm not trying to ruin your life. I whispered. You already are. She tilted her head. No, I'm just correcting the story. People think you're perfect. I'm reminding them you're not. And calling me a slut is correcting the story? I asked. Brooke's eyes glittered with something ugly. If the shoe fits. I felt my hands start to shake. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just said, if you do anything at the New Year party, if you try to humiliate me. Brooke smiled like she'd been waiting for that sentence. Like you humiliate me every time you breathe? She said softly. Then she brushed past me and called over her shoulder. Don't worry, sis. I'd never embarrass you. And I knew, in my bones, she was going to do exactly that. New Year's Eve arrived with the kind of cold that makes your nose sting and your patience shorter. Ethan and I drove to my parents' house with a tray of appetizers and a knot in my stomach. The house was bright twinkle lights everywhere. A giant 2026 banner, balloons gathered in corners like colourful threats. Family, friends started arriving. My aunts, my dad's co-workers, people who'd known me since I was 12 and still called me Millie, like I hadn't grown up. Brooke floated through it all, like a hostess in training. She wore a gold dress. She laughed loudly. She hugged people too long. And every time she looked at me, her eyes said, I brought a knife. I'm just deciding when to use it. I stayed close to Ethan, but not in a clingy way, more like a soldier, staying within range of their medic. At 11:40, my mum dimmed the lights and everyone gathered in the living room. The countdown clock on the TV glowed. Champagne flutes appeared. Someone passed out plastic tiaras. My dad yelled, All right, 10 minutes. Everybody get in here. Brooke climbed onto the ottoman like she was the designated entertainment. I caught my mum's eye, silently pleading, Please stop her. But my mum was smiling, proud, because Brooke was being fun. My mother loves fun more than she loves truth. At 11:55, Brooke raised her glass. I want to say something, she called. Everyone cheered. I felt Ethan stiffen beside me. Brooke smiled wide. It's New Year, a fresh start, and I just want to acknowledge my big sister, Amelia. People clapped. My face stayed calm, but my heartbeat thundered. Brooke continued. She's done so well this year. Work, engagement, everything. She paused, letting the praise soften the room. Then she added, sweetly, and it's inspiring how she always knows how to get ahead. A few people laughed. My aunt said, Brooke. Brooke waved it off. No, I mean it. Amelia is resourceful. She pulled out her phone, and my stomach dropped because I knew what she was about to do before she did it. She tapped her screen, then said, I thought we'd play a little game, since it's New Year's. Like, honesty hour? My mum chuckled nervously. Brooke, honey, maybe... Brooke ignored her. She turned her phone toward the room and said, Does anyone here want to see what resourceful looks like? I heard a couple people murmur, confused. Brooke smiled and said, I have some messages, some screenshots, some proof. Ethan's voice was low in my ear. Amelia, tell me you have a plan. I breathed in, because I did. Not because I'm a genius, because I've been a sister long enough to know the difference between a joke and a trap. I stepped forward before she could hit play, and I said clearly, Brooke, get down. The room went quiet enough that I could hear the TV clock ticking. Brooke blinked, like I'd broken the script. Oh, she said, laughing lightly. Amelia, relax. It's New Year. Get down. I repeated, calm but sharp. My father frowned. Amelia. I looked at my dad. No, Dad, not this time. Brooke's eyes narrowed. Then she smiled again and said, Okay, fine. If you want to be serious. She raised her phone higher, and she said, loud and bright. Everyone, I think you deserve to know what kind of woman Amelia really is. My mum's smile froze. Someone whispered, "What's happening?" Brooke tapped her phone, and I said, "Before you do that, Brooke, tell them why you made a folder called Amelia Receipts." Her hand paused, just for a fraction of a second, but it was enough, because people saw it. And when people see a pause, they sense a lie. Brooke laughed too loudly. "What? It's just—" "I saw it," I said, "and I know what's in it. Fake texts, edited screenshots, the same ones you sent to my HR department anonymously." A wave went through the room. My boss's wife, yes, my boss's wife was there, because she's friends with my mum. Her eyes widened. Brooke's face tightened. "You're insane!" I nodded once. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just done being quiet. Brooke's voice sharpened. "Amelia, stop embarrassing yourself." I smiled slightly. "Oh, I'm not." Then I pulled out my own phone, and I said, "Everyone, since Brooke wants honesty hour, let's do honesty." My mum whispered, "Amelia." I didn't look at her, because if I looked at her, I'd see the plea for peace. And peace is what kept Brooke powerful. I turned my screen outward and said, "This is a burner account that's been posting about me for months." I scrolled. People leaned in. Faces tightened as they read. "Corporate slut vibe. Fake perfect sister. She sleeps her way up." Someone gasped. Brooke snapped, "That's not—" I tapped the screen again. "And here's the login recovery email for that account." I'd done it earlier that week. Hit forgot password, and let the platform partially reveal the recovery email. It showed BR.E. Grant at ****. Brooke's middle initial. Brooke's last name. My aunt's mouth fell open. My dad said, "Brooke?" Brooke's face went pale, then red. "That could be anyone," she yelled. I nodded. "Sure." Then I opened another folder on my phone and said, "And here's the email header info from the anonymous HR complaint." Because my company's IT guy, who owes me a favor, helped me trace the originating IP enough to show it came from a coffee shop near Brooke's apartment. I didn't need to say the coffee shop name. Brooke did it for me. "You went into my life?" she shrieked. And the room reacted the way rooms react when someone accidentally admits guilt. Heads snapped toward her. My mum's lips parted in horror. My dad's face drained. Brooke realized what she'd just done and tried to pivot fast. "I mean, this is insane. Amelia's obsessed with me." I interrupted, voice calm as glass. "Brooke, you called me a slut. You tried to destroy my career. And you chose New Year's to do it publicly." Brooke's eyes went wild. "Because you deserve it." Silence. Dead, heavy silence. Then Ethan spoke for the first time, voice low and deadly. "Why does she deserve it? Brooke?" Brooke turned on him like a trapped animal. "Because she's fake," she spat. "She acts perfect. She walks in and everyone claps. She takes and takes and takes." Ethan's jaw clenched. "What has Amelia taken from you?" Brooke's voice cracked. "Everything." I looked at her, truly looked, and I said quietly, "No, I didn't take your life, Brooke. You just hate that I built mine." Brooke shook her head violently. "You think you're better than me?" I replied, steady. "I don't think about being better. I think about being safe. And you've been trying to make me unsafe." Brooke's hands trembled around her phone. And then she did the thing she always does when she's losing. She tried to go for the ugliest, loudest accusation. "She cheated," she screamed, pointing at me. "She cheated on Ethan. She's been flirting with men for years. She's easy." My mum made a strangled sound. Ethan's face went hard. I didn't flinch. I just said, "If you're going to accuse me of cheating, show the receipts." Brooke's smile returned triumphant, vicious. "Gladly," she hissed, and tapped her phone. She held it up to the room like a trophy. A screenshot appeared on the TV because she'd connected earlier. It showed a text thread, Amelia, and a man's name, with flirty messages. People murmured. My aunt whispered, "Oh my God, Brooke looked at Ethan with a grin. Happy New Year. Ethan stared at the screen, then at me. I met his gaze and said, That's fake. Brooke laughed. Sure. I stepped closer to the TV and said, loudly enough for everyone, Brooke, do you want to tell them the part you didn't know? Brooke's eyes narrowed. What? I turned to the room and said, Those screenshots, they use an old version of my contact photo, one I stopped using 2 years ago. Brooke's face flickered. I continued, and the timestamps overlap with the night. Ethan and I were literally in the ER with his niece. Ethan's head snapped toward me. That's true. My mum blinked. We were at the hospital that night. Brooke swallowed. Then I opened one more file on my phone. And here, I said, is the original template Brooke used. Because earlier that week, I'd gotten into Brooke's laptop. Not by hacking. By something much more American family drama than hacking. She left it open at my parents' house while she helped with decorations. And Brooke has never believed she needs to lock anything from me. Because she thinks I'm too nice to look. I wasn't too nice. I took photos of her open tabs image editing software, fake text generators, folders named with my name, and a draft email to HR that started with, As someone who cares about workplace integrity. I held my phone up. I zoomed in, and I said, Brooke, you wrote this. The room shifted so hard, it felt like the air changed pressure. My dad's voice was small. Brooke, why? Brooke's mouth opened, then closed. She looked around, realizing for the first time in her life that her charm wasn't working. So she did the last thing she had left. She tried to turn herself into the victim. You all love her more, she sobbed suddenly. You always have. You don't see me. You never see me. My mum rushed forward instinctively. Because my mum cannot resist rescuing pain. Brooke, honey. I lifted a hand. Mum, stop. My mum froze. I looked at Brooke and said, You want to be seen? Fine. Let's see you clearly. Brooke sniffed, eyes glossy. Amelia, please. I cut her off, voice sharp now. No, you don't get to please your way out of this. You tried to ruin my job. You tried to ruin my relationship. And you chose a holiday so the family would pressure me to stay quiet. Brooke's tears stopped like a faucet. Her face hardened, and she hissed, low enough that only the front row could hear. Because you are a lacy little liar. You act so pure, but you know you like attention. You know you like men looking at you. I stared at her, and I said, clearly, Say that again, loud. Brooke blinked. Go on, I said. Say it where everyone can hear. Say what you've been saying behind my back for months. Brooke's lips curled. She thought she still had power. So she did. She lifted her chin and announced, loud and proud, My sister is a flirt. She's cheap. She's lucky she got Ethan before people figured her out. My dad looked like he'd been slapped. My mum's hand flew to her mouth. And my aunt, my sweet aunt, who always brings potato salad, whispered, Oh my God. I nodded slowly. Then I said, Thank you. Brooke frowned. For what? For finally saying it out loud, I said. Because now you can't pretend you were just joking. Now everyone knows exactly who you are. Her eyes widened. You think you're winning? I smiled. No, Brooke, I'm not winning. I stepped closer, voice steady as steel. I'm ending this. Then I turned to my boss's wife and said, Karen, please tell everyone what you called me last week. Karen blinked, shocked. Amelia, please, I said. Calm. Karen swallowed and said, Someone sent me a message, saying Amelia was sleeping with donors. A murmur rolled through the room. I nodded. From Brooke? Brooke yelled, You can't prove that. I turned to my dad and said, Dad, remember when Aunt Sheila asked you if I was okay because she heard I party too hard? My dad looked sick. Yes, that started with Brooke, I said. Brooke screamed, Stop! I kept going. Mum, remember when you asked me, out of nowhere, if I was behaving myself at work events? My mum's eyes filled with tears. Brooke told me you were. She said she was worried. I nodded. Exactly. Brooke's chest heaved. You're turning everyone against me. I looked at her, and my voice went quiet, but lethal. No, Brooke, you did that. I'm just finally holding up the mirror. And then I delivered the final piece, the one I'd saved for when she couldn't dodge. I filed a report, I said. The room stopped. Brooke froze. What? I raised my phone and showed the email confirmation. Harassment, defamation, workplace interference. The HR complaint is part of it. The burner accounts are part of it. The edited screenshots are part of it. My mother whispered, Amelia. I looked at my mum. I'm not doing this to punish her. I'm doing this to protect myself. Brooke's face twisted. You wouldn't. I met her eyes and said, I already did, but... And for the first time all night, Brooke looked afraid. Not because she felt guilty, because consequences had entered the room. The countdown clock hit 11:59. Someone's phone alarm chimed. My dad, still stunned, whispered, It's almost midnight. The whole room stood frozen, champagne forgotten. And then the TV blared. 10. Nobody cheered. 9. Brooke's hands shook. 8. My mum started crying silently. 7. Ethan moved closer to me, shoulder against mine like a shield. 6. Brooke whispered, Amelia, please. I didn't answer. 5. My dad's voice broke. Brooke, why would you do this? 4. Brooke looked at him, furious. Because you never loved me enough. 3. I said softly, This isn't love, Brooke. This is obsession. 2. She lunged toward me, hand out like she was going to snatch my phone. Ethan stepped between us instantly. 2-1. The TV screamed, Happy New Year! And in the exact moment everyone else was supposed to kiss and cheer, my family watched my sister try to grab evidence out of my hand like a criminal on camera. Ethan's voice was low and sharp. Don't touch her. Brooke froze. My dad grabbed her arm. Brooke, he said, voice shaking. Stop. My mum sobbed. Please, not tonight. And I looked around at the room, neighbours, relatives, family, friends, watching the truth finally take up space. I lifted my champagne flute and said, quietly but clearly, to new beginnings. Then I added, eyes on Brooke, and to old lies finally dying. No one clinked glasses. No one laughed. Their smiles cracked. The next week was messy in the way consequences are messy. Brooke didn't magically turn into a better person. She went on offense. She posted vague quotes on Instagram about betrayal. She called me at 2 a.m. and left voicemails swinging between sobbing and rage. You're ruining my life. You always wanted me to fail. You're jealous of me. You're evil. Ethan blocked her number on his phone before I did. My parents called me every day, voices thin, trying to pull me back into the old system, where Amelia keeps the peace and Brooke gets the excuses. Amelia, my mum said, crying, she's still your sister. She tried to destroy my career, I said. My dad said, she's not well. She's not well, I replied, and I'm not her punching bag. HR at my company concluded the complaint was malicious. My boss apologized to me in a way that made my chest ache because I could tell he hated that I'd been forced to defend my own character. And my lawyer, yes, I got a lawyer, because I'm done doing family drama, with Just Feelings sent Brooke a formal cease and desist. Brooke responded, the way Brooke always responds to being told no. She tried to find another angle. She called Ethan's sister to warn her about me. She emailed my mother's church friend. She even tried to message one of my interns at work, pretending to be concerned. But the thing about documenting someone is that once you start, you don't stop. Every message went into a folder. Every voicemail got saved. Every new lie became proof of the pattern. And slowly, finally, my parents started seeing what they'd been refusing to see. Brooke didn't want a sister. She wanted a target. The moment my dad truly changed wasn't in a courtroom or a therapist's office. It was a Tuesday afternoon when he called me and said, voice hollow, she screamed at your mother today. She called her stupid. She threw a picture frame. My throat tightened. And what did you do? There was a pause. Then my dad said, quietly, I told her to leave. I sat down because my knees went weak. You... What? I told her to leave, he repeated, voice shaking. I said, you don't talk to your mother like that. You don't attack Amelia. You don't control this house with your anger. I swallowed. Did she leave? My dad exhaled, broken. She did, but she told me. She told me I chose you. I closed my eyes. My dad whispered, and Amelia, I realized she's been making me choose for years. I didn't say, I told you so. I just said, I'm sorry, Dad. Because here's the truth. I didn't want Brooke destroyed. I wanted her stopped. There's a difference. We didn't fix everything overnight. There isn't a magical family montage where everyone learns their lesson and hugs under twinkle lights. But we did something we'd never done before. We set a boundary and kept it. My parents started therapy without Brooke because they needed to understand why they kept rescuing the person who hurt everyone. Ethan and I went to couples counselling for a few sessions too. Not because we were broken, but because we'd survived a storm and we wanted to build stronger. And Brooke? Brooke faced what she'd been avoiding her whole life. She had to sit alone with herself. Her friends started backing away when they realized her stories were always about how someone else wronged her. A mutual friend finally told her, you can't keep calling everyone toxic when you're the one lighting the match. Brooke tried to come back with apologies that sounded like bargains. I'm sorry you felt hurt. I'm sorry you misunderstood. I'm sorry, but you pushed me. I didn't accept those, because apologies that come with but are just excuses wearing perfume. The only apology I ever believed came months later, in an email with no emojis and no performance. It said, I don't know how to be happy for you. I don't know how to not feel smaller next to you. I'm angry all the time, and I hate myself for it. I'm starting therapy. I'm not asking you to forgive me yet. I read it 3 times. Then I replied with one sentence. I hope you keep going. Because forgiveness isn't a gift you hand someone because they demand it. It's something you grow toward when safety is real. On the next New Year's Eve, 1 year later, Ethan and I hosted something small. No big party, no stage, no speeches. Just a few close friends, good food, and a quiet sense of control. At 11:59, Ethan kissed my forehead and whispered, How do you feel? I looked around at the room, warm, steady, honest, and I said, Like my life finally belongs to me. And that's the lesson I learned the hard way. You can love someone and still refuse to be their target. You can be kind and still be unmovable. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for a family is force it to face the truth. Because peace that depends on your silence isn't peace. It's just a pretty cage. And I'm done living in one.